The most famous family in the world, the British royal family, gave birth to Princess Beatrice of York on August 8, 1988. You would not believe how many problems she had in her life for someone who was born into the top level of wealth. You'll understand why people say money doesn't solve all problems by the end of this movie. Prince Andrew, who was the Duke of York, and Sarah Ferguson, who was the Duchess of York, had her first child. She was the fifth beloved grandchild of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip. Everybody thought she would be the most silver spoon child ever when she was born. They had to say sorry though, because what happened to Princess Beatrice was crazy. Her crazy life began when she was 7 years old, and she learned that no matter where you were born, life can always find a way to hit you in the face. After her mother's scandals and lack of competence became public, Beatrice's world fell apart when her parents got a public split. By co-parenting and living together in a healthy way, they tried to help their family, but that can't fix a child's broken heart. Their close-knit family helped her and her sister, Princess Eugenie, become good women. There was something else going on in their hearts, though. Did these things hurt them or make their lives better? Watch this video all the way to the end to find out the biggest royal family secrets. We keep telling her that her life is so hard because she had to go through her parents' split and couldn't live a normal life after that. She tried really hard to be like the other kids, but she just wasn't. When she got to the hospital, the royal family was heartbroken to learn that their little princess had been identified with dyslexia. She tried to hide it for a long time, but when she finally told everyone in 2005, she stepped up and offered support to those who were going through the same thing. She had a hard time accepting the truth herself before she told anyone. Because of this, she could no longer do well in school. Beatrice had to put off her GCSE tests for a year because she thought she could handle her dyslexia better and maybe do better on them. What do you think? She did great. While she was in school, she got an A in drama and BS in history and film studies. This showed that she would live up to the duties that came with being a court member. When she was chosen as head girl in her last year, she also showed that she was a good leader. She did very well in school, and she discovered that she loved singing when she joined the school band. That she had to deal with as a child was another important part of her early life. And no, it wasn't dyslexia. You might ask what it was. That's what we'll say now. It all began when she had to deal with the fact that she was her mother's daughter. Sarah Ferguson, her mother, had been a part of many things in her life. She was known to be best friends with Lady Diana, but she also got into a lot of trouble. They included her failure to handle simple money matters, which put her house in debt, and her affairs, which led to a picture of her assistant licking her toes on vacation going viral. Before the internet existed, she went viral. The biggest scandal was when she tried to pay off a reporter by using the power of the British royal family. It was common for people and the media to dislike her. It was because of this that people called her Duchess of Pork. This was a very painful name to wear, even for Princess Beatrice, who saw herself as the Duchess of Pork's daughter. Because of this, she put herself on a strict diet when she was only 8 years old. Things got worse when Beatrice's feelings about her body changed as she grew up. As she got older, people became more interested in how she looked, and they would criticize every fashion choice or hairstyle she made. This made things worse. The last blow she took was being made fun of when she wore a beautiful fascinator to Prince William's wedding in 2011. Instead of being praised for her style, she was called the pretzel hat. The fact that she had to deal with people making fun of her body was terrible. She used to be very careful about every part of her body. That she gave up and became shy is what one might think. Not at all, no. She worked on herself and didn't care about these things. She didn't give in to what society thought was beautiful. Instead, she decided to be proud of who she was. She has used her fame to question common ideas of beauty and even encouraged other people to love what makes them special. Princess Eugenie, her sister, told us about a time when Beatrice was crying before a public event. But she got through it all and made sure she would be the most loved royal member. A lot of people love Beatrice because she is so friendly and loving with them. Princess Diana, her aunt, was the only other royal child that people thought looked like her. All of this happened because as she grew older, Beatrice took on her queen duties and also understood her people. She didn't want to live like the other members as a golden bird locked up in a cage of royalty. So on her 18th birthday, she ran towards becoming an adult by going to Windsor Castle for a big ball with masks. She promised herself that she would start working. And it all began when she worked in stores at Selfridges. Then she did a job at the Foreign Office's press office for free. All of this was done so she could learn about her people and do what she was supposed to do as a queen. She meant it when she said she would change the royal family's rules. Which makes sense, since Beatrice made history in 2009 when she was the first member of the British royal family to appear in a non-documentary film. She had a small part in the movie Victoria, the Young, Everyone loved the movie about her grandmother, Queen Victoria. Though, unfortunately, her first movie was also her last in the entertainment business because she had to quit her job at Sony Pictures because of a hacking scandal in 2014. It wasn't like the end of her singing career meant the end of her life. It's important to remember that she's not like most people. Everyone loved her as Princess Beatrice. She took her work to a new level when she moved to New York City in 2015. In the end, she had to balance work in both London and New York as part of a full-time job. She went by the name Beatrice York at work. She was the Vice President of Partnerships and Marketing at Affinity while she was there. And for those who don't know, Partnership and Strategy is the best AI company in the world. You might wonder, though, what she did for the people she loved so much. Keep your hands off that because we're about to tell you more about it. Remember how she had trouble reading? Well, it was something that ruined her school life when she was younger. Even though the school was good at teaching normal things, she was by herself and had no one to help her. People in her family and circle of friends quickly stepped in to help her, and she began to get her life back. Everyone she knew, including her teachers, always helped her. She overcame her disability and became an example of how a disability doesn't have to define you. Instead, it can be a source of strength. All of this taught her a new skill, how to think outside the box and look at problems from different angles. Having been through something herself, Beatrice became a strong supporter of education and understanding. People no longer think badly of people with dyslexia because of her fame. When she told her story in talks and interviews, things changed for good. The word she sent made sure that these people knew that dyslexia is not a problem that keeps you from succeeding, but a gift that helps you be creative and solve problems. She had been working closely with groups like the Helen Arkell Dyslexia Charity to help students who needed it, and she continues to do this in her home life as well. She makes sure her kids learn to accept who they are and become the best versions of themselves when they are at home with her. She isn't letting them live like golden birds in a cage by doing this. Instead, she is making sure they will be free people who reach their full potential. The fact that she had a dual-type childhood was another thing that made her unique. Even though she was in the middle of her parents' public split, this turned out to be very helpful for her. The two kinds of love and care that she got as a child were able to fill in the cracks that she had, making her who she is today. When she spent time with her mother, she picked up on her carefree personality, and when she went to formal events with her father, she learned how the royal family acts etiquette. Some people might think this is a bad thing because she was just a child with dyslexia who had to deal with what her parents expected of her. She learned how to move forward in a way that no one else thought possible, even though they were living in different worlds. Tom Quinn, an author who writes about royalty, said that Beatrice often had to deal with this double world, where she had to act like a princess while also wanting a more normal life. These people had no idea that Beatrice would use the fact that her family was split into two groups to help her figure out how to deal with her situation. That was a lot of government talk. Let's talk about something more interesting. Some of you might be thinking that a woman as important as the kings would have picked the right men, right? Wait for it. This girl blew our minds when she chose the worst thing that could have happened. When she was 17, she fell in love with the worst guy ever. She liked Paolo Luzzo and wanted to be with him when he was 24 years old in 2005. People thought that Paolo was a very bad person because they had so many court problems. People were furious when they started dating in public. To see someone like Paolo go out with Princess Beatrice is something they would rather die for. What did he do to make people hate him so much? Well, he had been in a fight that ended in death when he was in college, which led to a charge of murder that was later dropped in favor of assault and battery. That's all we could say about it, but remember that he was the worst. To make things even stranger, Beatrice's family, including her mother Sarah Ferguson, backed the relationship even though he was in trouble. But thankfully, they broke up in 2006 because Luzzo's probation made things hard for them because he couldn't move freely. Even though they were no longer together, Beatrice was seen as sad and broken for a long time. The crazy thing is that her life was really changed by her 10-year friendship with Dave Clark, a businessman who worked for Virgin Galactic. Their relationship began sweetly and grew like a fairy tale. Everyone thought Clark would be the end of her story. After a long time, they thought that a royal marriage would last forever. But all of their hopes were dashed when Beatrice was crushed again in 2016, when Clark refused to commit to marriage, leaving her devastated. Let's say one thing. It's crazy how much this girl loved Clark. She even moved to New York to be with him. And slowly, cracks started to show in their relationship. She was at a loss for what to do. It hurt even more when Clark quickly moved on and asked someone else to marry him. This made Beatrice feel like she wasn't good enough and that no one could love her. What then took place? Did she meet someone else? Has she moved on? That will all be clear by the end of the movie. After her heart broke, the first thing she did was go back to her people. She did her job as a princess better than ever and decided to turn her pain into something good. She did volunteer work and spoke out for issues that were important to her by using her fame to help them. Focusing on helping other people not only made her feel better, but it also made her stronger as she began to heal from the mental wounds of her past. You see, she once again showed that the scars on your soul are what make you unique. These only make you more passionate. It was almost too good to be true. She met Edoardo Mapelli-Mossi just when she was beginning to think that love might not be meant for her. He was a real estate developer with ties to the upper class in Italy. He became a very important part of her life and made her regret the lonely nights she cursed to love. When they started dating in 2018, word spread like wildfire. By March 2019, Beatrice was in the news when she went to a public event with Edoardo. This was like letting everyone know that they were dating seriously. Later that year, on a romantic trip to Italy, the pair got engaged. They seemed to really care about each other and respect each other. She had only ever needed someone who would treat her with respect and kindness and pay her what she was worth. And Edoardo was the kind of person who had all of these traits. Something went wrong because their wedding was supposed to happen in May 2020, but the COVID-19 outbreak showed up out of the blue. Their plans fell through, but Beatrice was strong and chose a private wedding at the Royal Chapel of All Saints in Windsor in July 2020. The wedding was very small and personal. It was even smaller than Lady Sarah's. He was sad because she was going through something else at the time that made their wedding so small. It was the time when her father, Prince Andrew, caused a lot of trouble. Still, it wasn't something a royal member should have done. It looked like a normal family get-together because of the personal touches. For example, the wedding dress she wore was a remodeled dress that the Queen gave her. Another thing she wore was the Queen Mary fringe tiara, which stood for consistency. The past. After a long wait, Princess Beatrice and her husband were blessed with a girl on September 18, 2021. They named her Sienna Elizabeth Mapelli-Mossi. She is also the parent of Christopher Wolfe, who they love and call Wolfie. He was born in April 2016 from a relationship her husband, Edoardo Mapelli, had before they got married. What we've already told you about Princess is that she has spent most of her public life helping other people. As the first junior advocate for children in crisis, a springboard for kids, and the World Dyslexia Assembly, she has done a lot for the public good. There were many good things she did, but Grace's Place project was the one that stood out the most. It is a hospital for kids who have illnesses that will not get better. Along with the community, Beatrice worked hard to make sure that these kids got the care they needed, and she did more than what was expected of her as a royal patron. She worked hard to raise money and was even there to open a new building, which she says made her feel proud. Someone in the royal family actively supports this project, but that was the final straw that broke the camel's back in 2019. It was terrible for everyone when the hospital closed. It was especially bad for Princess Beatrice, who had put so much time and effort into the cause. This was a very clear example of how money can't fix everything, and even after this terrible event, Beatrice's resolve never changed. She knew more than ever how important it is to have a place like Grace Place. Instead of letting the loss stop her, she used it to drive her to keep fighting for communities that are weak. What is she doing now? Princess Beatrice has a net worth of $5 million and is 36 years old. As a fun fact, she and Edoardo are going to have another baby soon. She is running a campaign to raise knowledge about dyslexia and has been a part of a project to do that. One reason why so many people love her is that she has never given up on fellow humans.